Good evening. It's Saturday, the 12th of November. You're tuned in to our 6 p.m. newscast coming to you from Arirang's news centre in Seoul. It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this evening, a massive demonstration is underway in central Seoul. It's the third since the Chesun-sil scandal broke, and it appears between 500,000 to 1 million people have gathered in and around Seoul's Gwanghwamun Square near the presidential office of Cheongwade. Protesters are demanding a transparent probe into the scandal and for President Park Geun-hye to resign to take responsibility for the scandal. We have our Kim Jung-soo at the scene. Jung-soo, what's the atmosphere like there?
Hello, Mark. The protest fully began at 4 p.m. at Seoul Plaza at the center of Seoul. According to rally organizers, more than 1,500 civic groups showed up at today's event. They say that more than 1 million people have come to the protest, which breaks the record previously set in 2008 regarding the mad cow disease scandal. So far, they have promised to protest in a peaceful and disciplined manner. Beginning at 5 p.m., the crowd moved up north towards Gwanghwamun Square, which is not far from the presidential office of Cheongwade. The police have deployed more than 25,000 personnel to contain the crowd and prepare against any possible altercations. They project that about 160,000 people showed up at today's protest. The leaders and senior officials from Korea's 3 opposition parties, the Democratic Party of Korea, the People's Party, and the Justice Party are at the protest. It's also believed that some of the ruling members of the Central Party are also there. Back to you, Mark.
Well, thank you very much for that report, Jung-soo. That was our Kim Jung-soo reporting on the protest in Seoul. Huge numbers of people showing up this evening. Now, over at Cheongwade, the presidential office is keeping a close eye on the development of the protests, with top aides discussing measures to calm public anger and continue state affairs as smoothly as is possible. The top office has also upped security around its vicinity as the court accepted protesters' request to march up to the boulevard closest to the Blue House for the first time, saying their rights to voice their frustrations through demonstration precedes the convenience of transportation and passage. The police had earlier banned their approach to that point. Since last weekend's protest, the top office has said it humbly accepts the people's message and is taking the situation very seriously. The CEO of Korea's top steelmaker POSCO was questioned overnight by prosecutors over allegations the sale of its former unit was related to the power abuse scandal involving President Park's confidant. Prosecutors say they quizzed Kwon Oh-jun for around 12 hours at the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's office before letting him go home at around 7 a.m. this morning. He was grilled over allegations an associate of Chesun-sil, the woman at the heart of the scandal, attempted to forcibly take over shares of POSCO's former advertisement subsidiary last year. Now, Cha Eun-taek is suspected to have used his ties with Chair and other senior government officials to put pressure on a small ad agency to hand over 80% of its shares. The attempt, however, did end in failure as the ad agency declined to cooperate. Prosecutors tried to determine whether Kwon's decision to sell the unit was intended to help line Cha's own pocket from the start. Now, in other news, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has reshuffled his White House transition team. He has put Vice President-elect Mike Pence in charge of leading efforts to select the key members of his administration. Park Ji-won has more.
3 days after his historic election victory, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has reorganized his presidential transition team, putting Vice President-elect Mike Pence in charge of it. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who had been serving as the team's chairman, will remain as one of the vice chairs. Former Republican presidential candidate Ben Carson, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, and former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani are listed among the 6 vice chairs, along with Christie. With the reshuffle, Pence will take over the urgent task of selecting more than a dozen cabinet officials and hundreds of appointments of key government officials by January 20th, when Trump is inaugurated. President-elect Trump also announced Friday that his 3 adult children, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and Ivanka Trump, as well as his son-in-law Jared Kushner, will join the 16-member executive committee of his presidential transition team. Some are also being seen as potential prospects for key administration posts. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon held telephone talks with President-elect Trump on Friday afternoon, local time, for around 20 minutes. Ban congratulated Trump on his election victory and conveyed hope that the traditionally strong cooperative relations between the UN and the U.S. will continue to further promote world peace, security, and sustainable development. In an interview with news agency AFP, Pan also expressed confidence Trump will not forsake the landmark Paris climate change deal as he understands the importance and urgency of the matter. The UN chief said he'd like to have a one-on-one meeting with the U.S. president-elect before his term ends at the end of December. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump will reportedly move to pull the United States out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership within his first 100 days in the White House. Citing a report by Trump's transition team, the Politico newspaper says the U.S. could also begin withdrawing from the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, in as little as 200 days after Trump takes office. President-elect Trump has campaigned against the TPP and NAFTA, saying such deals have caused America's current economic woes. Experts say that without U.S. involvement, the TPP will essentially be declared dead, as the United States is the capstone of the entire deal and is by far the biggest economy within the TPP nations. The report also says other first-day business in the Trump administration includes directing the Treasury Department to label China a currency manipulator, something the Obama administration has avoided. South Korea will reportedly sign a bilateral military intelligence sharing pact with Japan in the next 48 hours, despite strong objections from the opposition parties. A government source says the two sides will tentatively sign the General Security and Military Information Agreement during talks in Tokyo on Monday. Seoul's defense ministry announced on Friday that the tentative signing will come early next week without specifying the date. The two governments have said the agreement will be signed within this year, but it could be finalized as early as this month if the current pace of negotiation continues. Under the deal, South Korea will directly be able to receive information on North Korea's missiles from Japan's surveillance satellites. The first iteration of the pact failed to materialize in 2012 as critics in South Korea accused the government of trying to seal the deal behind closed doors. Korea's Coast Guard has again clashed with Chinese boats attempting to fish illegally in Korean waters. The Ministry of Public Safety and Security says the Incheon Coast Guard was deployed at around 11 a.m. this morning to disperse more than 30 boats that were poaching in West Sea waters some 70 kilometers off the coast, and they were big boats as well. After ignoring radio calls for them to leave and heading towards the Coast Guard in an aggressive manner, the Coast Guard fired machine gun rounds into the air to scare the boats off. The Coast Guard is permitted to do that under new regulations. Now, no one was thought to be hurt, but the condition of the Chinese boats hasn't been confirmed. The Coast Guard announced in October that it would pursue a more aggressive firearms policy with Chinese trawlers. Disputes over illegal fishing have affected relations between Seoul and Beijing for years now, and there have been numerous, often violent clashes between the Korean Coast Guard and Chinese crew members. Now, drones will soon be able to locate and rescue survivors buried in an earthquake, thanks to some new technology developed by Korean researchers. The gadget could be especially crucial in the event of another tremor like one that hit Korea back in September. Park Se-young has the details.
When an earthquake strikes, emergency rescue technologies that can help minimize the human losses are essential. A group of Korean researchers has developed one such piece of technology that enables drones to rescue survivors within the golden window of 72 hours. In one earthquake simulation, people are trapped under the rubble of collapsed buildings and tunnels. First, a drone is flown over to the site in less than 12 hours. It's equipped with sensors that allow it to locate survivors who are buried up to 10 meters below ground by detecting signals from their smartphones. The drone simultaneously photographs the site and creates a 3D map of the area, alerting rescue workers to the entry point and degree of destruction. Then it creates a hole that's 1 meter in diameter that rescue workers will be able to use to gain access to the site. The drones can also secure a primary lifeline that provides survivors with oxygen and water within the 72-hour golden window by piercing the wall from a neighboring building. The rescue drones developed by the Korean team use existing technologies like sensors and digging gear, and they can be put together and sent to the scene immediately.
Our aim is to supply water through the primary lifeline within 72 hours and rescue survivors within 1 week.
Only about 30% of the buildings and half of the facilities in Korea, such as railroads and tunnels, were designed to withstand earthquakes, making this a potentially valuable piece of equipment if tragedy strikes. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Now, finally, as we like to do at this time on a Saturday evening, let's take a brief look at the weather. And it's going to be fairly mild for the time of the year tonight. The overnight low will only dip to 10 degrees Celsius in the capital. Sunday is going to be overcast, but pretty mild indeed, with the high reaching 17 degrees Celsius in Seoul. With that, let's take a look at the weather map for Korea and the rest of the world. Well, that's all we have for now. Do enjoy the rest of your Saturday wherever you're watching us, and stay tuned to Arirang TV. We'll be back with our next newscast at 10 p.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.